Love lives here.
So, practicing acceptance. How do we feel about acceptance? Are you willing to accept it? Boo. All right. Not today. Not today, Jeffrey. Not today. Okay. Well, I guess we have some work to do then, shall we? All right. So, when I was 25, I was living in Japan, and yes, Eddie, I was living in Japan. Um, Eddie, when I don't know certain references from the 90s, I'm like, I don't know, I was in Japan. And Eddie always gets mad when I say, I don't know, I was in Japan, because, I never saw those things. So I was in Japan. And my biological father called me. I want to be really clear that it's not my dad that you all know. This is my biological father called me. And he asked me a question. And he said, are you living, you ready for this one? A homosexual lifestyle? That was the question. I'm like, okay, it's not exactly a lifestyle. Vegan, vegetarian, lifestyles. Who I am is not a lifestyle, right? Also, who I am is not a choice. But anyway, he asked me this question. And I said, Dad, are you asking me if I'm gay? And he goes, yeah. Then the answer is yes. And so he goes, okay. And went on, the conversation continued on, and the bits and pieces really don't matter. But the big piece of this story that does matter is that he decided that it was okay to love the sinner, but hate the sin. Thank you, Jeannie, for clearing your throat. I agree. To love the sinner, but hate the sin. Now then, to my 25-year-old self, this did not feel very accepting. You think, right? This did not feel very accepting of who I am as a person, accepting of the totality of my being, accepting of my wholeness, right? Because when you hear that, love the sinner, but hate the sin, it's still, shall we say, dripping with judgment, isn't it? And if we're dripping with judgment, if judgment is a big piece here, then how could there actually be acceptance? Would you agree with that? And so I took the position of, well, if that's the way you feel about it, you don't love me unconditionally. Because in my mind, a parent should love their child unconditionally. That means without condition. That means without putting stipulations of this or that, right or wrong. If you do X, then you get my love. But if you do Y, I'm going to withhold that from you. That's not unconditional love in my book. So what this felt like was that there wasn't unconditional love. Love the sinner, hate the sin. Doesn't feel like unconditional love. So I was like, okay, fine. You know who I know accepts me for who I am? You know who I know loves me for who I am? Who loves me unconditionally? The man you know is my dad, Keith Masagatani. And so what did I do? At 25, I changed my last name. I took my dad's last name. I took Masagatani, and I had it for many, many years, from 95. I had it for 30 years. No, 20 years. 20. I can't do math. 20 years. Until Eddie and I got married. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, I had my dad's last name because my dad, I knew, loved me unconditionally. My dad, I knew, accepted me for the totality of who I am. There was no judgment on who I am, who I love. There was no judgment. There still is no judgment. Dad and Eddie get along really great. Right? So here is the thing with acceptance, right? As I was mentioning, when we refuse to accept somebody as they are, rather than as we want them to be, we create separation. We create distance. We create this false idea that they are not whole, that they are not complete. And we judge them for being some way, for not living up to our expectations, for not living up to our preferences, and for not living up to what we think they should be. So then we are in full judgment. Now, I know that all of you have been on the receiving end of not feeling accepted, not feeling belonging, not feeling chosen, of maybe even having to perform to get love, to try to pretend to be something you're not in order to get loved, by having to conform to other people's ideas or expectations or shoulds in order to have our needs met, right? And, beloveds, we also are not free from doing that ourselves, with ourselves and with others. How many people have disappointed you? How many people aren't living up to your expectations? Who in your life do you... You can come sit up here, Chester. These people won't bite. I don't know about tomorrow. How many people are you thinking should do something differently or should do it the way you want it done rather than the way they are doing or the way they're showing up? There's chuckles. There's uncomfortable chuckles around the room, right? Don't you just hate it when I hold up that mirror? Yes, 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 yes. So, beloveds, what we have the opportunity to do here is to remember, this is where we get to go back and we get to practice acceptance. We don't have to accept the behavior. It's just like forgiveness, right? When we talk about forgiveness, we talk about that one of the barriers for forgiveness is like, oh, but then I'm condoning the behavior. Then I'm saying that it's okay. Then I'm saying that this thing is wrong, but I'm going to let it be. I'm just going to let it be okay. And that's not what forgiveness is, right? And it's not what acceptance is either. Acceptance is just saying, okay, this is what is, and I get to be curious. I get to open my mind. I get to put aside the judgments, and I get to be curious, which then opens me up to a greater possibility of growth and learning. I get to be curious and see how I am not accepting, how I'm judgmental, where it is that I'm creating separation. And then I get to shift the way I'm thinking. I get to shift the way I'm interacting. I get to shift the way I am participating in relationship with other people. Tracking me so far? What are you thinking? Yeah. Where's the mirror? A little uncomfy, right? Dinah says, I really wish it wasn't my work. I really wish it was somebody else's work to be doing. Yes, exactly. Cindy, yeah. Yep. Go ahead. Yep. Love the sinner, hate the sin. Mm-hmm. Yes. So Cindy is curious with the president. Her feeling is that this president is a bad man, and so it may be a common feeling. I'm not saying that I'm not sharing feelings. I'm just stating that there's a feeling that this man is a bad man, and that how is that separating out loving the sinner but hating the sin? if, as we are taught, that we separate action from activity, or action from actor, right? Right. So the thing we get to go back to, the thing we get to remember is that there is only one power, one presence, one love, one existence, one life that is expressing in, through, and as all. This beloved may not remember who he is. And so we then have the opportunity to remember for him who he is. We have the opportunity to invite him higher through our action and activities. Because accepting somebody as being the beloved incarnate and condoning their behavior are two separate things. We get to accept, but we also get to hold accountable. So if you think of Jesus and the woman who is getting ready to be stoned to death, he says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." So what he's saying in that is, I'm not condemning you. I'm accepting you for your wholeness, and I'm calling you to a higher activity of a higher way of being, of going and sinning no more. Sinning meaning making a mistake. Remember, sinning is simply missing the mark. So when we stop missing the mark, then we stop the sinning, right? So we as a community, we as a people, we get to accept that there is a wholeness and a perfection in this man, or in people that we see and people that we experience. Like my friend last week wearing in Tractor Supply with the Ultra MAGA hat, right? I get to accept. I get to know. I get to affirm that this beloved is, in fact, a divine emanation, incarnation, manifestation of the one life, because there's nothing else for him to be. Now, the way he shows up in the world, forgetting that he's that, is another thing, right? I don't have to accept his behavior. I can hold somebody accountable for their behavior, but I do get to accept that they are whole in and of themselves, that they too are the divine manifest body of the one life. They too are an expression of the one life. Is that helpful, Cindy? No, it's not taking us off track at all. Thank you for bringing that forth, right? So what that means then, my beloveds, is what we get to decide when we are interacting with people is we get to accept the wholeness. We get to accept the totality. We get to accept who they are with a capital H. Capital H. Woo! Only coffee's in the coffee. Maybe that's the problem. All right. The Who with a capital W, okay? The Who with a capital W. This is true. I was a Japanese teacher, not an English teacher, yes. The Who with a capital W. The Who of who they are, right? But we also get to set boundaries. That doesn't mean that we accept and then we become a doormat, just like we don't forgive and become a doormat, right? We get to set our own boundaries. And as Nancy Levin defines boundaries, they are the things you will and won't do, will and won't accept, and will and won't tolerate. So there are things that we won't tolerate. There are things that we won't do. And we can still be accepting of the person on their path, on their way. It is hard. And this is the work that we are being called to do in this moment. I know, it's like, man, like Dinah said, how come this is my work? How come this isn't somebody else's work? Because, beloved, you are awake and aware. Y'all woke. Sorry. Sucks. I know. Y'all woke. Right? And somebody has to be the adult in the room. Jeannie said, me, you, making that I get to be the adult in the room. Remember whose community this is? Not mine. It's all of ours, right? We collectively get to be the adults in the room. Yes? Yes, okay, okay. If you say so. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Should be easy. Right? But guess where you get to be the adult first? Here. Guess who you get to accept first? Here. Guess who you get to forgive first? Here. Right? So, back to Dad. Back to my father, excuse me. So around 35, I recognized, you know what? I've been expecting unconditional love from my father. I've been expecting acceptance from my father. But I haven't been willing to give unconditional love. I haven't been willing to give acceptance. I haven't been willing to give exactly what it is that I most crave, that I most want, that I most desire. And who's responsible for that? Me. And so upon realizing that, I called him. First time we'd talked in years. I reached out. Because I had come to accept that I too was party in this rift, because I too was withholding. I too was refusing a relationship. I too had been unwilling. I too, without saying it and phrasing it that way, had chosen love the sinner, hate the sin. I had done that too. So, in order for this to resolve, somebody had to be the adult in the room. Somebody had to step forward. And it was paining me enough that it was me, that I chose to step forward, that I chose acceptance of who my father is. I chose acceptance of how he shows up. I chose acceptance of his beliefs, not that I was accepting them as mine, but I chose acceptance of what it is that he believed. I chose to accept him for the totality of who he is, and I offered that acceptance so that he knew that I accepted him in his totality. I offered unconditional love. Because if I'm not sharing it, if I'm not giving it, I'm not open to receiving it. And in that, my beloveds, the relationship changed. He is one of the few people that I can honestly say, he's passed, I love unconditionally. But it was something that I got to do. It wasn't about whether he loved me unconditionally. I love him unconditionally. It wasn't about whether he accepted me for all of who I am. I got to accept him for all of who he is. And in that, there was the healing. The healing within me and the healing within our relationship, that I was able to go and sit with him by his bedside in the nursing care facility where he was 6 months before his passing. And that we were able to be, even though he was non-communicative at that point, we were able to be together in nothing but love. So there's great power here in this power of acceptance, the practice of acceptance. What I'm inviting you into is remember your own wholeness. Remember that as you remember your own wholeness, there's wholeness. Everybody has that same wholeness within them. And when we recognize the wholeness, we recognize the belonging. This is part of our 10 core concepts. This acceptance piece is accepting the good. This acceptance piece is related to and directly tied to our core concept of forgiveness. This is related and directly tied to our core concept of inclusion. This is related to our core concept of oneness, of wholeness. I'm inviting you, my beloveds, to practice acceptance. Not condoning, not giving in, not resigning yourself to the way something is currently, but accepting and holding accountable both yourself and others. And so it is. So I invite you to go to tables now. We're going to go to tables. And the questions here at your tables are for you to dive in deeper. With who in your life do you struggle to accept as they are? What shift in your relationship, what might shift in your relationship if you released your need for them to be different? And where in your life do you need to balance acceptance with healthy boundaries? And you can even come up with some healthy boundaries there. For those beloveds here online, go ahead and slide into the Zoom room, and we will post that here. Go ahead and slide into the Zoom room, and Stuart will meet you in the Zoom room momentarily. So Mom and Earl and Denise and Dad, you can all go ahead and get started in the Zoom room, and Stuart will be with you in just a moment. All right? Here we go. Yeah, if you spot it, you got it. Now, remember, though, that just the way you got it doesn't mean that you're doing the exact same behavior as, the person you're spotting, right? But you are seeing, but what is triggering you is that there's something in here that I get to look at, right? There's something within me that I get to look at because it's really triggering me out there. And so it becomes an energetic match. They've plugged into my electric socket, and the only way is I get to unplug that. The only way I get to put the little toddler protector, right, the baby protector or the cover on the electric outlet, is I get to recognize how that shows up in me and how I get to deal with that within me, because then they can't plug in anymore, right? Can't keep plugging in. So your homework, my beloveds, tomorrow, I know you are cradling a sleeping toddler, a napping toddler at the moment, but your homework is let go of the shoulds. Stop shoulding on yourself. And stop shoulding on other people. Shoulding is no bueno, okay? So notice how often You think somebody should be different. And replace that with they're on their path, I'm on mine. So every time you think, my husband should be, or my wife should be, or my parents should be, or my teacher should be, or my students should be. Got plenty of teachers in the room, right? They're on their path, I'm on mine. And for my teachers in the room, you still get to hold them accountable. So there you go. Yes, Corey, I have a question. Should. I think of my own internal voice. Uh-huh. And I should on myself all the time. Well, that's messy. Right? Forgiving. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. So Corey also mentioned, for those of you online, Corey mentioned that, should, when you're shoulding on yourself, that's easy to should on ourselves too, and that a lot of times it's an internal should. I should, I ought to, I have to, right? All these are the same ideas. And so you get to clean this mess up too. So think of the word, here's my Siri saying, yeah, I don't know, I did not say Siri, so stop it. Siri, stop. Siri should stop, yes. Gotta turn him, it, whatever, off. Okay. Anyway, back to this. It was brilliant and world peace solving. Oh, yes. So, how many of you have tension in your shoulders? Yeah. Do you bear the weight of the world on your shoulders? Do you shoulder the responsibility? How do you spell shoulder? SHOULD-ER. So your shoulders are your shoulders. Okay? So, I should, I have to, I have to, I should, I should, I should, I have to, I have to, I must, I must. I'm responsible, I have to. Drop them. So, a physiological way to let go of your shoulds, Corey. A physical way to let go of your shoulds. Shrug your shoulders real tight, 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 tight. Everybody, tight, 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 tight. Drop them. Tight, 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 tight. Drop them. One more time. Tight, 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 tight. Drop them. Your muscles have to release the same amount that that you cause tension. They have to release that same amount. So every time you get tighter, 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 and then you drop them, they drop a little bit further, they drop a little bit further, they drop a little bit further, so they relax. So anytime you're experiencing a should, shrug, tight, and then drop. And then notice the physiological change in your body. Okay? That's not science of mine. That comes from my own background in kinesiology and physiology and A&P and all that kind of stuff from being a massage and craniosacral therapist. So there we go. Again, you know that, and don't ask me for a massage. So, huh? Oh, yeah. You can get your own conga line, but I'm not touching you. All right. Yeah, shoulds don't work on me either. You should give massages. Debbie just said, yeah, it doesn't work. I invite our practitioners and ministers to please stand and surround the space. And let's come together in consciousness, shall we? And also our core council members to please stand and surround the space as well. There you go. Yep. You're waiting for it, I know. All right, and here we go. So recognizing that there just is this one infinite presence that lives, moves, breathes, and has its being in, through, and as all of life, all of creation, having created everything through and of itself. The universe is the manifest body of this one life, this one presence, this one love. I recognize that each one gathered here this day is a divine emanation and impartation, a manifestation of this one life, this one love, this one power, this one presence. Each one here is a microcosm of the great macrocosm. Each one here has the power within them to create, to manifest, to express their fullness, their wholeness, their totality, because each one is whole and complete as they are. And so I know that here and now I speak my word for this beloved community, that we stand in acceptance of the totality of our being. We stand in acceptance of the divinity of our being. We stand in acceptance of the love that we are, the presence that we are. And we recognize that this is true of everyone. We are all brothers, sisters, and siblings on this journey. And so we accept the wholeness and totality of life, of every person on the planet, recognizing the truth of who they are is the divine made manifest. And to those who have forgotten who they are, we stand in acknowledgement of the life and the love that each one is. We stand and we call them forth. We call them higher. We allow the scales to fall from their eyes that we may all see clearly. We may all see rightly. We may all see justly. And we accept within ourselves the truth of our being, the truth of life, the truth of love. And we live this out into the world in greater and more expansive ways. And for this I do give thanks. And I release this word now, knowing it is done. I let it be, and so it is. So I invite everybody to stand and let's say this affirmation together. Don't make you repeat it. So give me all the vim, vigor, velocity, voluptuousness, acceptance, magnificence. I accept myself as I am. Something wonderful is happening through me right now. It is this thing called love. Love is in my mind. Love is in my body. Love is in everything I do. I am it. I share it. I receive it. And I move love forward because love lives here.